Professional debriefing is a valuable tool that can be used to analyse and reflect on unanticipated events, difficult situations, and unexpected or traumatic clinical events. Nurses are subject to clinical emergencies and stressful events that can be overwhelming. They may be sudden or they may be unexpected. Debriefing allows those involved to hear the full story, gain perspective on what other staff members were doing at the time, the clinical reasoning process and decisions that were made during the event. It also allows us to understand what was done well and what could have been done in the future to ensure the best possible outcomes for patient and staff should the situation arise again. It also gives us a chance to make sense of what happened and reduces the possibility of psychological distress by talking about the event and giving validation to the experience. Debriefing has its historical roots in the military. During World War II, United States Army Brigadier General and Chief Historian Samuel Lynn Atwood Marshall was tasked with documenting the events of World War II. He became increasingly frustrated with the process for reconstructing events from historical data. He started conducting interviews after combat, where troops were interviewed in groups immediately after a mission or as soon as the fighting had ended. The aim of these interviews was to chronologically describe and record the events, down to the smallest detail as told by those who lived them. At the time, debriefing was simply a means of gathering data with no intention of addressing post-combat psychological distress. The approach was systematic. Information was obtained about what occurred, the soldiers' conduct was assessed, as was the subsequent outcome. This system later came to include feedback regarding performance. This feedback was designed to convey specific information regarding performance compared to a set standard. Debriefing and feedback became a standard component in healthcare in the 1980s and was seen as an integral part of the process of any simulated learning exercise, and is now used widely in healthcare and clinical settings. There are several approaches which vary according to the outcomes that need to be met. These include psychological and organisational debriefing. The aim of psychological debriefing is to reduce the possibility of psychological harm by talking about the event. There's not a place for asking questions such as you should have done this or why didn't you do that. Organisational debriefing focuses on finding out what staff did well and what could have been done better, and is a useful tool that can be used to inform policy and procedure, assist with putting in place in order to minimise the risk of adverse outcomes occurring in the future. So questions to be asked: what do we want to know during a debriefing session? We want to know what went well, what didn't and why, what was supposed to happen, what did happen, and why was there a difference between what we expected and what actually occurred. What organisational constraints or barriers did we face? How did we overcome them? Did we overcome them? For example, was the necessary equipment available? Was it in working order? An example here might be the resus trolley. Was it fully stocked? Was everything in working order? Had it been checked? What existing organisational policies and procedures helped performance during this incident? What didn't help? Did the team communicate effectively together? Were the roles clearly defined? Why or why not? What could we do differently? Factors that facilitate effective debriefing include making sure that everyone who may wish to attend has been informed of the time and the venue. Create a safe place, one that's private and quiet. Address the issue of confidentiality at the beginning of the debrief. Make sure everybody knows that what is being spoken about is confidential and it stays within those walls. Have only one person speaking at the time with no interruptions. Ensure that everybody that wishes to speak can do so, respecting those who remain to stay silent. Start with the facts of what happened to get the full picture, filling in any details if the story is incomplete. Move from the facts to thoughts and then feelings. Strong emotions may be present, so be aware. Lead the conversation back to a more cognitive level and look at coping strategies and self-care. And also it's good to finish the session by letting the group know that there is extra help and counselling if they need it and what's available to them. And that is debriefing.